Welcome to Conversations with Tenzin. I'm doing this podcast because I meet a lot of interesting, a lot of wonderful people on campus and in my life. So I don't want to forget people and their stories, especially the stories. So today I have my good friend from Zimbabwe, Gwede. Yeah, Vivit, welcome.
Thank you, Tenzin.
So Vivit, what is your story? I want to learn about your story. So who is Vivit?
Thank you, Tenzin, and thank you for bringing me to your podcast. My name is Gwede from Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is a country in southern Africa, and it got its independence from British rule in 1980, after a century of British colonialism. And so we have close to 44 years of independence now. And within that country, there's a province called Masvingo. That's the province I originate in. I was born in a province called Midlands, in a town called Zvishavane. Yeah, so I did my primary school in Zvishavane. At a school called Sinami Primary School. My parents were teachers at that school. I was born by parents who were and who were still educators. And so I grew up there at Sinami Primary School, where my parents were teaching. I did my grade 1 to grade 7, and they were nice days growing up, with other kids. And one of the interesting things was that I did well during my primary school, and I also had some leadership roles. First on me, I became prefect in grade 3. I became deputy head boy in grade 6, and I became the head boy of my school. And I also, did well educationally. And so I think that was the beginning of my sort of leadership journey. Then I went to Gokomera High School in Masvingo, which is a Catholic-run mission school, where I did my O levels and A levels education, and also where I was introduced to Catholicism. And I would want to say that some of my beliefs, or who I have become, was shaped at Gokomera High School, because it was a very, inspiring environment where, things like ethics, things like community focus, things like togetherness, and how to be in a community with others, and how to care for others. I think those are some of the values that were inculcated in me at Gokomera High School. Then I left Gokomera High School and then went to the National University of Science and Technology in Zimbabwe, where I enrolled my undergrad studies. And it was a very sort of difficult time for some of the students, because also our education system was not really funded well. And so during that time, when I went to university during the first year, the government supported students. But then just a year after I started, the government withdrew support to to university students, and because of the high levels of poverty and the many people who were from underprivileged backgrounds started dropping out of college. And at the same time, I was elected Secretary General of the Student Union, and so I this responsibility, very huge responsibility to represent some of these students and ensure that they continue with their education. Because for us in Zimbabwe, and I think this is true for many African countries, education is really the having social mobility. So, but it was also a very political moment in our country. I think for those who have read about Zimbabwe, we're facing very high levels of inflation, world record inflation. We had also a very difficult political environment with our elections. And so when we started this campaign for students to be accorded education, it also interacted with this very difficult environment. And we did our student protests, our student campaigns for free education. And during that time, the university administration and the government did not sort of take our activism in a very seriously, but also they didn't take the message from our activism, but really they took the message that we were trying to disciplinize their policies. And so, while many students were helped through our actions. Some were not. Some dropped out of college, but eventually, it became a very untenable environment for me to continue my undergrad studies. And sometimes I was arrested, and this has been something that happened to many student leaders in Zimbabwe during that time, and over the course of the years. For those who have been affiliated with the Zimbabwe National Students Union, which is our main student leadership body,
yes.
Which has been fighting for academic freedom, for the right to education. They've gone through very tough times in terms of the relationship with the administrations and the government. But this is a cause that has also been recognized internationally. In 2003, the Zimbabwe National Students Union won the International Students Peace Prize for human rights in Norway. So these struggles have also been sort of recognized as very important in the course of our country. So after that, I then studied with the University of South Africa, where I did my BA in policy studies, and after that, I began also working with human rights organizations, civil society organizations. In fact, I think my activism carried on from the university into that national space of the civil society organizations. Also because our country has been having challenges with the democratic process. So I worked with the Crisis in Zimbabwe Coalition. I worked with the Zimbabwe Human Rights Association. I was the National Information Publicity Officer. And I also worked with Trust Africa and the Zimbabwe Alliance Program. I was managing projects in governance, human rights, and democracy. And over the course of the years, I've also sort of emerged as a voice in the media, where I've been quoted by the media on Zimbabwean affairs, including Al Jazeera at some point, our local media houses, the Africa Report, and all those other So for consistency for 12 years, I've been a political commentator in Zimbabwean affairs on, in support of the democratic process, the human rights process.
Yes, this is something that we have noticed and observed. We have spent like 10 months together, that you have a very, strong political affiliation back in Zimbabwe. So I'm interested to learn that, like, did it start when you were acting as the student body member? And that was that, like, I want to know your political journey. Like, what was the cause that sparked that interest in politics? What was the view? And what are the challenges that you are trying to pursue now? So how has that grown as a, your political interest?
Yeah, that's a good question, Tenzin. So my political journey started at the university, the National University of Science and Technology, where where I was elected the Secretary General, as I said earlier. The task of a student leader in Zimbabwe involves defending the voiceless, involves defending those who are from difficult backgrounds in terms of their access to education. And by so doing, obviously, you are also challenging policies that are emanating from government structures, like the Minister of Education and the Minister of Finance. And so during some of our work was really to even engage some of these government structures. So, for instance, in 2007, I was part of a delegation that went to the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education, where we met the then permanent secretary, and we're discussing about how to support students who are in difficult times. And one of the programs that came out was called the Student Cadetship Scheme, where students would be supported and then sort of bonded by the university to pay back the amounts from the support that they would have received. But that was not sort of covering everyone. And so we still had to go on with our campaign. So in a nutshell, when you're a student leader in a context like Zimbabwe, your role interfaces with the political process. So that's how. But also, I got to understand that some of the challenges that students were facing were as a result of the political decision-making process, including the decision to privatize education. And the decision not to support students in the course of learning. So during that time we had also very frequent strikes by lecturers. We had so some of those challenges, and we got to understand that we needed also to embed ourselves in the national democratic movement in order to respond effectively to the situation that we were facing. So that's how I got involved in the political process, and because also, the responses to some of our actions also became very political, like being victimized by the police and so on. It also conscientized me further to the fact that maybe we needed to transform the whole political governance system in the country, and I think the over the years I've remained with that kind of conviction for many reasons, including the fact that we still have very high levels of inequality. We're still struggling with accountability in terms of use of public resources, and so I thought I could play a role in seeking transformation within Zimbabwe. And so this is where I also sort of joined the civil society organizations that I talked about. This is also sometimes when I've also helped the main opposition movement in terms of some of their processes. Like recently, they asked me to be one of the commissioners in their candidate selection process for the 2023 elections, just to come and help with the some of the knowledge that I've gained about democracy and human rights, and how process of citizen participation engagement come into that. So that's how I've got involved. But also, like I said, through the media process, where I've consistently been commenting, been engaging with the media, with the journalists, who thought maybe my perspective was, I think, maybe interesting or enlightening to some of their stories and their understanding of questions that country has been facing. So that's how I've got involved in.
It's a very interesting journey with it, and I would like to wish you all the very best, because what you're doing is you are in touch with the community and you know their problems. So that's why it's moving you to do all of these things, motivating you to pursue what you're doing right now. So I would like to wish you all the best. We have been doing this program for the past 10 months. So how has this program changed you? Because the Vivid that you were last year and the Vivid that you are now, we're not the same. So how has this program changed you?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, coming to MIT has been a very wonderful moment, a dream come true. Meeting, all the fellows from the different countries, very wonderful people, and the time has been amazing in terms of the learning. The environment, of course, is different from Zimbabwe. This is a more advanced economy, so it's also gave me an opportunity to learn about how things work in such an environment, and compare with things back home. Some things that I've learned are applicable, some are not. But I think there are always lessons, even where there are differences. And so I think the academic community as well at MIT is world class. The faculty is world class. The courses that I've taken were wonderful. The classes that I attended, you had MIT students, Harvard students, and to be able to exchange perspectives within that that environment was inspiring, was amazing, and just to learn what is happening within the research community, what is happening also globally, because when you come to MIT, you come to a global community, you learn about what is happening in many different countries just by being at this place. So I mean, my perspectives have been changed a lot. I've also gained some theoretical perspectives about how to look at certain developmental questions, how to analyze developmental problems, and how to and what could be the solutions, or how do you go about even discovering possible solutions. I've taken courses on institutions and development, the political economy of Africa, on international development, and so on, and been introduced to very great ideas. Some of them who were here at MIT, like Ali Samsden and all those other scholars, and I've met very brilliant scholars here at MIT, during the classes, but also during the guest lectures. I had a lecture that I attended by Mariana Mazzucato, who is one of the great scholars of our times in terms of political economy, in terms of industrial policy. So yeah, Asemoglu is here. I've also interfaced with the likes of Arturo Escobar as a guest lecturer. So many. I can't mention all of them. So this is a once in a lifetime or opportunity that I've received from the Humphrey Fellowship. So I really want to thank everyone who has been with me, including you,
Yes.
my good friend, along this journey. And yeah.
Now, with all of this knowledge and all of these wonderful experiences, what are your plans going forward?
My plans really are to go back home and see how I can contribute to my country. Of course, I mean, countries are big, processes, big institutions that cannot be transformed by a single person. But it's about finding a way into that whole dynamic and doing a very small contribution um, into those processes. Hopefully, and hopefully make some changes, some impact. Share with others what I've learned from MIT. And so yeah, it's about sharing my learnings. It's about finding a way of contributing within that space. I still remain committed to um, helping Zimbabwe development process, democratization process. Yeah, and it's economic, transformation, and I hope that I'll find a way of doing justice to some of the ideas that I've received here in terms of my very small contribution.
The person that you are, the kind of motivation that I've seen, dedication that I've seen, I truly believe that you can. And I would like to wish you all the best for that. My last question, Vivit, is something that I ask everyone is what motivates you? What gets you out of the bed every day to do the things that you do every day? What is your motivation?
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting question. I think I'm motivated by the fact that I have to play my role in the world. I have to contribute, to my country. I mean, I love my country, but also, I mean, that's also where my children are and where they are going to grow up. So my children also are a very serious motivation for me. I think I think I work for them. They also deserve a good life. They deserve a future. And anyway, I think there's someone who said the world that we live today, we are just holding it in trust for future generations. It was also passed to us in trust, so that so the hope that is that we, during our time, play the role that we should play and hand over the better world. So this applies not just to Africa, Zimbabwe, but to the world itself. With a lot that is going on in the world, I think still people have to be conscious. Leaders of today in different sectors have to be conscious about the fact that we still have to pass on a better world to the future generations. And I think that's something bigger than our individual selves. So it's motivating enough to be able to work for something bigger than yourself.
Thank you so much, Vivit. So that was a very beautiful way to end this conversation. And like I said earlier, I wish you all the best and all the success. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
taking time to do this with me. And yeah, I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is Conversations with Tenzin. And like I said, I'm doing this podcast because I meet a lot of wonderful, a lot of amazing, a lot of motivated people like Vivid here. And I don't want to forget them and especially their stories. So this is the reason why I'm doing this podcast. So thank you so much for listening to Conversations with Tenzin.